Hello, today we're talking about responsa literature, which is Sheilot Utuvot, in English, responsa literature, questions and answers that were asked from rabbis to more authoritative rabbis. Today we still have Sheilot Utuvot. It's well-known, shutim literature they call it, and when you ask a posek a question, he will respond with that kind of answer. I looked up in the poskim, I looked up here and there, I looked up in famous collections. Rav Moshe is a very famous collection. Rav Avad Yosef today is a very famous collection. There's some other collections more recently also, but these collections become written down, put in books, usually by their students, not by the authors themselves, and then people can read them and can learn about usually technological questions or non-technological questions, but certainly technology has proven a very fruitful realm of questioning to all these people. Now, in our DAF on Kaf Daled Amud Aleph at the bottom, we have an issue about Mincha on Shabbat, and do they read any psukim there from the Navi? So this is a whole back and forth, yes, no, doesn't make a difference. Rashi says, and Michelle quoted it, she quoted this Dibur HaMatchil, where Rashi reads, Hamaftir benavi b'mincha b'Shabbat. And then it says, Mitzati b'tshuvot ha'geonim shehayu regilim likrot benavi b'Shabbatot. Okay, this is fantastic, because it means that Rashi had sources. Either he asked questions or he actually had the pieces of paper, which is more likely, and he actually had sources from the Gaonic period, which is the period right before himself, a little bit overlapping, about this issue, because this is a unusual issue. In the end, he says we don't do it, and even though we could change it, we decided not to do it, and there was reasons, Gezerot, he says, from we don't know who these people are that instituted Gezerot. And actually, I think it's the Byzantine period, but that's time for another lecture. But the point is that Rashi refers to Sheilot literature. Now, there are many, many Sheilot coming from the Gemara itself all the way to today. Most of the time, they were written in Hebrew. For a time, they were written in Arabic and Aramaic, but they started to be written in Hebrew when people got to know the language, and they wanted to make that kind of the universal language, because now Judaism was spread out all the way from, Iraq, Iran, to Spain, and points in between, so Hebrew became the universal rabbinic language. Collections started to be amassed at certain periods. The big collection that we see in the 16th century is from Constantinople in Turkey, and various peoples started to put together the Gaonic works, collect them, find them, get them, and preserve them, because they were very worried that we were going to lose them. And we wanted to know what the Gaonim said, because they were kind of the first people who started writing on the Gemara outside of the Gemara. So it's a very important period for us, and this sort of the historical head started to rear its head in the 16th century. We have other collections as time wore on, but that was the first moments of collecting and putting in a book. Fascinatingly enough, Ilan Ramon Zal, the famous astronaut, yes, who unfortunately did not make it, was a fascinating person, and he wanted to keep Shabbat in space. So he asked eventually a Chabad rabbi who asked a bunch of other people, and has written up his response, and there's a video for a couple minutes on the subject as well. Ilan Ramon, first of all, wanted to eat kosher, so they had to find these kind of packages that could be taken to space, and they found a company in Deerfield, Illinois that serviced him. And then he wanted to ask about Shabbat, and this is his main question. He said that while orbiting the Earth, the space shuttle experiences a day-night cycle approximately every 90 minutes. So should he keep Shabbat according to Earth time, or mark it once every 7-day or night cycles, which is 10.5 hours, according to kind of the way he was spinning? And if according to Earth time, then what location on Earth should this be based? In the end, they decided he should go via Cape Canaveral, where he started out, which is where the location of the shuttle, and he should follow Earth time. In 2008, A Chabad rabbi in January 31st wrote a kind of a eulogy to him, and he called it Shabbat in Space, the legacy of Ilan Ramon. So responsa literature is always around us, and today especially with the kind of issues we have, we've had many questions, and the answers vary, but essentially they're kind of like a responsa literature. What do you do if you can't go to a minyan? What do you do if you can't fast? What do you do if you can't? What about communal burning of the chametz that we usually do? How do you do that? How do you fashion that so that you're sort of, it looks to you like it's a beer, because that's after all the bracha. So we have an issue with that. I'm actually going to ask my local rabbi that question shortly, but that's an issue, and that's responsa, and it's very important, and you see it has a long history.